All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Vortex Nation podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, what you may see is that Mark and I are at a severe disadvantage if we got into a gunfight right now. So across the table from us, we have Nick, who is joining us once more. Actually, Nick was on a podcast with us a while back. His dad also came up, and they discussed a number of amazing World War II era rifles with us. And then also, Nick has brought Greg along with him, too, who's a new guest to the podcast. We'll let him introduce himself here as well, but he seems to also be quite the gun aficionado because he's brought up some of his own, too, today. So, Greg, why don't you introduce yourself here real quick, too, just so we can have the listeners know who you are.
I'm Greg Keene. Enjoy the military surplus weapons, and I've brought a few of the sidearms to share with y'all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, we're super excited. So, again, if you've seen now on video, but if you haven't, what's in front of us are a number of similar era. I'd say, is it still kind of World War II eras that we're looking at, or we've stretched maybe outside of it a smidge here? Or?
So we're looking at probably, I'd say, turn of the 1900s.
Yeah, 1896 on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically from the Philippine insurrection on.
Got it. All right.
Okay.
And most of what we're seeing here are sidearms, like Greg said. So a lot of handguns. And the one thing we did figure, though, is to sort of break the ice as we get into this, Nick did acquire 2 new rifles that we have to mention because, as we discussed in the last podcast, there was a lot of cool rifles there. But these 2 are pretty rare, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
And you've got the essentially precursor to the 6.5 Creedmoor and the first gas gun like ever, right?
Yep. So the first one we'll talk about is going to be the Swedish Youngman.
Yes.
It is the 6.5 Swede round. So yeah, of course, your standard 264 6.5 caliber round. It runs off a 10-round box mag, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And as Jimmy was saying, it is the first direct gas impingement rifle. So
it looks... Oh, man, that thing's just ready to snap some fingers off.
So for most people, if you're watching the video, you're used to seeing your gas port on your AR. If you were to look here in front of the in the action, there's that hole, and there's a big gas tube that just runs all the way to your gas block, essentially, up here up front.
And when you took that wood handguard off, the gas block and the gas tube looked almost identical to that of an AR-15.
Yes, exactly.
It was pretty wild. And we were discussing a little bit, too, beforehand that it's quite incredible how not a whole lot has changed from the 40s up until, 2019 now, where you look at the designs and they look more modern, but, they utilize more polymers and things.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the base is sort of, I think as Greg, you said, everybody's kind of stealing everybody else's designs and stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's still just recycling what worked.
Yeah.
And, in the 40s when this was developed, and they just continued on today, just because it's black doesn't mean that it is any worse than what this was or, any better. It works, so why not utilize it?
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And
I mean, it is just amazing. These concepts were developed so early on, and they just carry through. You got a gas tube, you got a muzzle brake on this thing.
Yep.
Can you, Nick? Can you slide that again, maybe for the camera, so they can see how?
So right now it's on safe, so you can run your action with no magazine in there all day long.
That's almost reminiscent of like I have a VZ58. And the back end of the VZ58, it's like the dust guard, I think, over the... It reminds me... Actually, the whole kind of action reminds me of the VZ a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, mine's a VZ 2008. It's, it's a little bit of a different thing from Century Arms.
But it's very similar.
Very similar,
It can be
yeah.
very similar how your action runs inside of a
and once
cover.
And for those, of course, who are listening, you're having a hard time picturing this. Picture yourself almost like a Mosin Nagant meets an SKS meets a Lee Enfield... and an M1 Garand. It's all sort of, but it's got this nice, pretty-looking wood stock that goes on the bottom. It goes almost all the way in to the end of the barrel. And then sort of a traditional stock with a traditional cheek comb and stuff like that. But, yeah, the action part, like I said, it's reminding me a little bit of that VZ-style thing where the entire, when that slides back, the bolt slides back, it's just like one big, giant, gaping opening. which is pretty cool. But yeah, so when you were...
So yeah, you're on safe right now. So yeah, of course, yep, you can do that. When you slide it onto the fire position, which is away from a right-handed shooter, as you can see, it kind of slides forward about 1/8 of an inch.
Oh yeah, there's a
And
little
then
gap there.
it pushes itself forward. And you push on these 2 big gears. And if you think
Keep your
grand
fingers out
thumb's
of the way.
bad, that's a lot worse.
That comes forward with a vengeance.
I believe there's videos on YouTube where guys have taken hot dogs and stick them down in here.
Just to snap 'em.
Just to snap and see what it would look like.
I can only imagine. I know Jim Jordan in the office has a 6.5 Swede.
Big fan.
And I remember when he was first telling me about that, and I never. He's like, "Yeah, I've got a 6.5 Swede. I love it." I'm like, "I don't know, Jim. It sounds French." And
6.5 Swede, so French.
and I kind of dismissed it at first. You know, just it seemed obscure. You know, and I like common things, right?
do.
You know, and then now, the more I've learned about it, though, like it really was like it's the OG 6.5 Creed, which is so incredibly popular today.
Yeah. Jimmy gets some extreme accuracy out of that gun. I tell you what, the one thing I've noticed about people who shoot 6.5 Swede is that who shoots 6.5 Swede because they talk about it.
Might as well be
Yeah.
doing CrossFit.
It's,
This gun actually also has something kind of cool. So with last time I brought the M96 Swedish bolt action gun.
yep.
So this one, when that gun was out, they were still using like a lead round nose bullet.
Okay.
So on this gun, if you were to take the top handguard off, you see this little cotter pin in a way sitting right there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So what you do is you pull that out and reset your sight for either the round nose tip or like a Spitzer bullet.
Oh, okay.
So it's got 2 different, in a way, reticles built into your rear sight.
Yeah.
Which is pretty interesting.
Huh. Yeah, that's pretty cool. There's all these little kind of tricks or hacks that they used to come up with for different things, understanding what they had to work with. And you kind of had to be quick back in those times, too, because you had a war going on and you didn't have time to go to the drawing board, essentially to try and develop something that would take 5 to 10 years to develop. It was like, nope, we got to make this work. We got to make it work now.
You're trying
Figure
to
out
tell
a
me,
way.
Jim, there was a sense of urgency?
I think just a little bit. But so yeah, that's that guy there, and then you have another gun that is also gas driven, correct?
Yep.
And this is a really rare gun. When we first saw it, I just assumed SKS, which probably isn't extremely far off, right?
No, it's not.
But it's not. It is Nick.
So this is an Egyptian Rasheed.
Right.
So start off kind of a cool feature about this gun. It was actually made on the exact same tooling and machinery that was made on.
Wait, that's that Swedish gun?
Mm-hmm.
Like
How does that work out?
out of the same place?
No, so after the 40s when that gun was produced, they sold their equipment to Egypt.
No way.
And then in the 50s, the Egyptian Hakim, which is an 8mm rifle, gas gun, was invented.
Yeah.
Because there was a ton of military surplus 8mm ammo after the war. So and then after that, in 1960, when Egypt was kind of partnering with Russia as kind of a communist kind of country in a way, they invented this rifle for the 1 year in 1960. And they
Wow.
were using the same 7.62 by 39 that the Russians were using in the Commonwealth countries for a lot of their rifles.
And was this the one that you said, wasn't there something with the serial number or what's going on
with
with
this
one
gun
again?
only being produced for 1 year, numbers say around 8,000 were produced.
Okay.
And there's conflicting numbers of what was brought in the U.S. I'm seeing anywhere from around 3,000, around that ballpark area. This one has kind of a cool serial number, I think. It's number 7,750.
Yeah.
Which, if the reports are correct, it's one of the last 50 ever produced.
Wild.
That's pretty cool.
And it's got a bayonet on there.
Bayonet, so if anybody watching that's familiar with an SKS, it's
Very
exactly like an SKS.
No,
A lot of times you can get these bayonets confused with an SKS bayonet
Oh,
because
okay.
it looks exactly like the SKS blade bayonet.
Slightly different mechanism though.
I don't know if it's the mechanism. It's just something about with the way it latches on or something. I don't know.
Not
I haven't
quite
done much
compatible.
research on that yet.
Huh.
But
Yeah,
Now,
it
with the
shoots-
length there, is that a gentleman's bayonet on there?
Oh yeah, didn't we? What was that we discussed? It was there was like
There
a
was a certain length
Right, where
That
if you exceeded that length, you were barbaric. But
Right.
if you stayed underneath that length, then you were
the 10-inch rule.
Yeah.
This one, yeah, of course, it's
we live in a society, people.
yeah.
Yes.
This is
We're-
under 10 inches, so yeah, you should be good.
We're
Okay.
not barbarians.
26-inch long bayonet like that in World War One.
Yeah, exactly. And it shoots 7.62 and it has a detachable box mag.
Another
I
way
don't
you
know
can
if
think about it, how it's on the same tooling and machinery. If you remember how I took that mag out, it's that little push button in the back and then the spring clip thing in the front. Mm-hmm. This is very similar. It's just a push spring in the back.
That's pretty
that
cool.
the mag comes out.
Yeah.
And of course, the action is very resemblant to
Oh,
the
yeah.
way how it slides back in.
Now-
Still the same safety.
Oh, on the rear, yeah, same safety. Now, what would they have gone to after this gun if they only did it for 1 year?
I know from some research I've done on the Egyptian military, they would have went to the Egyptian Mahdi. I don't know if anybody's
Is that
familiar.
kind of like an AK?
It is.
Okay.
Very similar to an AK. Any more, that is the closest you're going to get to a true Russian AK
Yeah.
on the U.S. market without getting an actual Russian AK.
Interesting.
So,
Okay. Cool.
and of course, it's got your adjustable gas block here. So,
Oh, right in the wood stock there at the top, there's a hole drilled out for the adjustable gas block. That's cool.
they're pretty sweet guns.
Now, on any kind of a thing that it would even possibly resemble an SKS or an AK, why would you run it on anything but full, wide open?
Yeah, I know when I first got this gun, the gas was turned almost all the way off.
Oh, really?
So I was only getting single shot basically.
Yeah, basically a bolt gun. Mm-hmm. Huh. That's pretty neat. Well, there you go. 2 awesome rifles that Nick has added to the collection to start us off. Now, let's switch gears a little bit. There is one kind of rifle-y thing-ish here that we're going to talk about, but the rest are handguns. Everything here shoots essentially a pistol caliber, right? Mm-hmm. Where's the best place to start, do you think, guys? I know we kind of actually were able to split it up once again, like we did with the rifles, and kind of allied axis and neutral powers here with what we have. But these are kind of the handguns of the early 1900s.
Want to go start oldest?
Yeah, I like that. Let's do
Okay.
that.
Okay. This is a Colt double action Army, or the new Army. Colt
Okay.
New Army was also. It is in 38 long Colt. This is a model 1896, and like I said, it shoots 38 long Colt. They used these in the Philippine insurrection, and they were sorely underpowered because the natives in the Philippines were hyped up on whatever it was. They would shoot them, and they would empty the gun, and the natives were still coming. It was just,
Oh, seriously?
It was seriously underpowered for we had the 45 long Colt before, and it had plenty of power. Now remember, these are black powder.
Okay.
So a 38 caliber black powder pistol just did not have enough oomph.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hence the reason that the 1911 was developed.
Oh,
but,
I see.
Yeah, I picked this up. It's got the initials carved in it, and the initials are also carved in the holster. It's pretty cool.
The initials of whoever would have carried it at
Yeah.
that time?
Right. Yeah.
And
So-
you said that they had actually the 45 long Colt prior to this one?
Yeah, it was the single action Army, Colt single action Army, and 45 long Colt.
Okay.
But then when it developed the bean counters in Washington, it costs a lot to make a 45 long Colt. It's cheaper to make a 38 shell.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So everything was all about the money. Just like at the same time they had the 30-40 Craig, and they made it so that they could single shoot because they didn't want them shooting. If you have a semi-automatic rifle, then you can shoot more bullets, and that costs us more money.
So not only are guns not a whole lot different, but politics aren't a whole lot different.
Yeah. So
Obviously, Jim didn't subscribe to the more rounds you got, the less aim it take.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that we subscribe to. Interesting. Okay. So that's a really cool, looking revolver, it's your classic. It's got that kind of glossy finish to it. I guess that's a blued finish, right?
correct.
And then how many shots did it hold? Was
This
it
is
six or
six
an eight?
round.
Okay.
6 round. Of course, it's got the all the pertinent information on the bottom of the grip.
What does it say there? I can't.
Kind of a metal strip that comes.
I have
or the
old eyes.
frame.
I'll let you read it.
All right, what do you got here, Mark?
Okay, hold on. Let me get it in the light. U.S. Army model 1896.
Yep.
And then number 127 over 273. And then it's got some more personal engraving. I think it's the initials again, maybe RAG or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's a sleek pistol.
Yeah.
Yeah. Revolvers have always been, to me, they're so cool to look at and they're so cool to shoot. I haven't shot a ton of them. In fact, the one that I have the most experience behind is a little J-frame 357 Magnum. So
right, yep.
But they are pretty neat. What are the other? So there's 2 other revolvers here. I'd imagine those are also pretty old, like this one.
This is actually a.
Whoops.
This is a 1917 Smith & Wesson.
Yeah.
M1917. They made the Smith & Wesson and the Colt at the same time because they couldn't keep up with making 1911s.
Oh, okay.
So and this one is in 45 ACP.
Oh.
Uses the same round as what the 1911 did.
That makes sense.
So they carry one box of one crate of ammo in, and no matter what sidearm you're feeding, you can feed them. And those were used with moon clips.
Right.
Okay.
And was that something that happened essentially totally at random, where you were just sort of like, hey, you're going to get issued either a 1911 or this Smith & Wesson, or were there certain special people who got the 1911 over certain people who just were given the revolver?
I think it was whatever was in supply is what you got.
Right.
Right. I'm sure that they did have certain things go to, revolver would go one place and,
I would imagine maybe if you were a little bit, maybe somebody a bit more special, you might get the 1911. It would seem to me that people would have preferred the 1911 back then, right? I mean, it's a little bit easier to load with a magazine.
Yeah. And you got 7 rounds as opposed to 6. And it's a lot easier to...
7's the key number.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to unload the magazine as opposed to, having to kick them out.
Yeah, you got to goof around with all that stuff, and when you're in the jungles of Japan or something like that.
And after the war, this was a pretty popular civilian market weapon.
Sure.
And so then they developed the rimmed cartridge, so they didn't have to mess with the moon clips. So you've got a 45 ACP rimmed.
Oh, okay.
So,
got it.
So it makes it nicer because you can literally just reload one round if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And I do have some rimmed ammo.
That's pretty cool.
So it just makes it easier than trying to mess with getting them in and out of the moon clips because there's a particular tool you have to use, and generally you come out with bloody fingers by the time you're done.
How many moon clips would a guy have been walking around with then?
Probably 6 sets.
Yeah. About as many as they could hold, or
yeah.
I mean, seem to make sense.
So,
and do they stay in the moon clip pretty well? I mean,
yes. They're like I said, there's a tool you have to get in there to pry them out.
Once it's in there, it's in there.
Yeah, it's in there.
Got it.
It goes past 180 degrees and so you literally have to push them out. They're like everything's small and sharp, and you do bloody your fingers.
Small and sharp and metal, and
So
that all equals some bloody fingers.
Yeah. So.
What's the other revolver over there? And that one's got a different grip. It's kind of got that wood checkered grip, and it looks a smidge different than these other ones with the smooth wood grips. And
well, this is a Russian.
Oh, okay.
This is the Russian Nagant.
Yeah. Okay, I've seen these before.
So we can either talk about it now, or we can continue on with the U.S.
Let's continue on with the U.S. We'll come back to that one.
Okay.
I just wasn't quite
sure. You want to hit the 1911?
Another cool fact on the 1917. I know after the World War I, a lot of the police departments were issued those. And so...
Is that the 38 special one?
No, the 1917
Oh, that's
45.
the 45 ACP one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's some stories, depending on the department, like I know I've read one where a guy was sent by... He knew the police chief in the town real well, and the police chief actually sent him one when he was in Europe as a sidearm, because that happened a lot, actually. If you knew your family member was a police officer or something, they would send you a gun for when you're on the front lines. If you're like a private or a sergeant, you weren't usually issued a sidearm very often.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of times you were sent one over, family member or a local friend.
In trench warfare, you don't necessarily want something that's 4 feet long.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I can imagine. Yeah, out with the 20-inch bayonet, perhaps.
It's just not practical anymore.
Now, there were stories, too, kind of just bringing up law enforcement as well. Briefly, with, you hear the stories about back when police were severely undergunned and they would deal with the mobsters and stuff, and they only had these little revolvers that were shooting. Were they shooting like 38 long or something like that? Because I remember people saying the mobsters started wearing body armor or whatever, and or their cars were armored or something like this, where they were way outgunned.
Well, most of that was in rifles because, of course, they had BARs and later the Thompson.
Right, yeah, the old Tommy gun.
Yeah, which is just shoots the same as this. Shoot. It's like throwing this and the whole crate of pistols at a person at the same time when you're shooting a Thompson.
Yeah.
Right.
38 was really popular. 32 was popular. I mean,
Man.
Police positive.
Yeah,
it would have been I think Colt police positive or Smith police positive. Would have been the handgun that they used for that.
Yeah.
which is a little 32 short, 32 long, and
I feel like it wouldn't take long. I mean, it probably took longer than it should have, but for me, it wouldn't take long to realize, that's not going to work.
right.
Yeah, that little guy there.
Which we'll talk about later.
Exactly. We'll get to that thing. It's like the size of, smaller than the size of somebody's palm. So now
right.
Nick's pulling out the 1911.
Staying in World War I, this is, of course, this is actually a mix master. You see, you have originally were designed by Colt, the 1911, probably the most common, or the handgun most people know. Mm-hmm. The 1911,
and this is a John Moses Browning
John
design.
Moses
correct?
Brown design.
What isn't? Honestly,
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's be real.
This
here.
one's actually set up in the World War II configuration. The World War I would have had a flat mainspring housing. The trigger would have been a little longer, sticking out.
Okay.
You wouldn't have had you had a fat spur on the hammer. And then I think they were blued. I'm not 100% sure on that one.
What's this one? It's got like a real matte finish. For those listening, a 1911 is exactly hard for you to imagine probably, but this is a little different from a lot of the modern ones you see that are all kind of spiffed up and have a lot of fancy stuff going on. This is really bare bones 1911.
So this is a Parkerization.
Looks battleship gray.
Yeah,
I
and
like
it's
it.
very similar. It's just a finish they put on them.
Yeah.
Parkerized.
It looks good. And it's got these kind of dark, almost reddish wood grips on it. But yeah, that's a classic looking 1911 there. If you closed your eyes and drew a picture on a piece of paper of a 1911, this would come out.
Yep.
And
that one's actually U.S. property marked. So if you look around the trigger, it says U.S. property, United States property.
Yep.
It's very faint, but it's on there.
United States property, yep. U.S. Army, M1911.
So that one's kind of a mixed master. It's got a Remington Rand frame on a Colt slide.
Oh, okay, interesting. Now, how did you go about finding this one? Is this one that somebody maybe has toyed around with since it was released, or is this actually how it would have come?
That one actually I got through the CMP.
Oh,
so
yeah.
recently, about last year, they came out with saying the government was going to release out of their holdings anywhere from 8 to 10,000 plus 1911s, and it was kind of a lottery. You had to insert your name, and I was fortunate enough to get my name picked for one of them, and
That's cool.
I got that back in July.
Okay.
How do you even
Very nice.
become aware of that announcement?
I'm on multiple forums, so like you have the CMP has their own forum out there that people can buy, sell, and trade stuff. Plus, the CMP puts information out whenever they get a new batch of grands or stuff in. There's the same way with there's probably a 6.5 Creedmoor forum out there.
Yeah,
Guys out there talking. That's how we learned about this. Plus, this was actually all over the news in the gun industry for people that collect old stuff. Right. About this because finding U.S. property marked 1911s aren't that easy. So,
did we tell a story in the last one where it was the guy that came into Brian's old gun shop, Ryan Muckenern's old gun shop,
right?
And they issued him an M1 carbine,
yep, or
something like that, and he didn't like it, and then. And he turned it back in for his 1911 because apparently one time he shot a guy in the leg and the guy was dead. Some kind of story where the guy came in, he said, they tried to give me one of these one time, but I told them no, I wanted to keep my 1911 because once I saw a German there and I shot him in the leg and he was dead with my 1911.
I don't know if we told her or not. That's
I can't
not
remember
pretty
either.
worth
I'm
telling.
pretty sure we did.
Did we?
That was
Okay. I don't tell it nearly as well as Ryan because Ryan then brings in the actual. He knows how to impersonate the guy's voice much better than I. But it is a good story. The old 1911. Gosh, a pistol though that's still in use today. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you look at that and it won't go away. Everybody's like, well, it's just single stack. It's been outdated now and replaced by polymer frame pistols. But then they come out with 2011s, which are largely similar but double stack, or even people now still using single stack 1911s.
And the Beretta is almost the same way. The Beretta M9 was designed in the 80s, I believe, and the Marine Corps is still using them in the new M9A3. It's just as much a common as this is. So
it's wild. So where does one go now?
All right, I think this would be the next one.
It's almost weird to think about
Victory?
going anywhere from the 1911. It's just so
Time kind of stops.
It's so iconic, yeah. But apparently the world did carry on.
So this is the Smith & Wesson M&P, or depending on who you talk to, the Smith & Wesson Victory revolver.
Okay.
So this was designed in World War II as well. Actually, before World War II was the Model 10 revolver. But also during World War II, since they couldn't keep up with production with these, they developed these. This is a 38 Special. So it's a nice, nothing.
The 1911 was in high demand, so they had to come out with some revolvers.
A lot of these were basically used for like military police, off the front lines. A lot of factories in the U.S. were guarded with these. The Navy, I believe, used some of them.
Okay.
Usually when they're property of the United States government, you'll have a mark on top of the rib here. They'll say United States property or Department of the Navy, something like that usually. Basically, yeah, it's all it is a Smith & Wesson Model 10 M&P revolver. But the name the Victory came with, if you look at the serial number on the butt here, there's a V in the very first prefix.
Oh, okay.
Under that little sling swivel.
Yep. I see that V there.
There
So that's
she is.
how the Victory name got its name.
And what did that signify? Was it like
It was something I think the government just decided to do. Let's make some of these.
the old? They were pulling a play right out of Winston Churchill's
Yep, he
playbook
liked this
there.
V for Victory, so yeah.
That's pretty slick. Cool.
This one, I
Some
would
guy
assume,
shot another dude in the leg, and he said, "Victory!" And they
Exactly.
said, "That's
Yeah.
what we'll call it."
Yeah,
We're
that's
gonna
This
put
one's
V
a
on
pretty
it.
early Victory. Later in the war, they would have had just a standard wood grip. This one's early enough because it has its original Smith & Wesson medallions in the grip.
Is it kind of the typical story of some of those rifles we found where they started out making them maybe a little fancier than they needed to, and then by the end of the war, they were just sort of churning them out with whatever they could?
That's how a lot of guns are.
Don't make it fancy, just make it work.
Exactly. But yeah, it's a very nice revolver. But
Were there any other, in as far as the U.S. goes, were there any other semi-auto pistols at the time? Because it seems like you talk about the 1911, and they couldn't keep up with production on that. So they had, the 45 ACP revolver. They had this 38 Special revolver from Smith & Wesson. It seems like there was no other semi-auto pistol that was, picking up the slack. Was there?
you would have had the 1903 hammerless,
Yeah.
which was a semi. That was mainly a World War I design. It never saw a ton of action.
I've never even heard of it.
It's kind of a scaled down, in a scaled down way, 1911.
It's a precursor to the 19.
Yeah.
Of course, it's in 1903,
yeah.
and I think that it was a Browning
I believe so. I'm not.
design as well.
Yeah.
And I think
the appetizer to the...
Yeah, to the iconic 1911.
And what was it called? It was the 1903
Yeah,
1903.
Colt 1903.
Colt.
Was it
hammerless?
less reliable? Is why it didn't maybe catch
I'm not.
on?
I don't
or-
think. I think it was
I think it was a 38. It
Yeah.
was a 38.
Oh, okay.
Of course, you're not going to get the knockdown power.
right. So they.
And it was one of the ones that came out of the trials, like the 1911.
And
I think they chose two.
It kind of looks like that gun right there, that black gun.
It
Even though
does
that's
I can see the
kind of a
Tokroff
bit of
in
a
it a way.
communist
Yeah.
gun, but I think like a 1911 without the rear
Oh,
the hand safety
hand
thing,
safety.
whatever
right.
that
The
thing
palm
is.
safety.
Palm safety, yeah, and then a little bit more of like a stubby, boxy looking grip.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a cool looking
And what
gun.
caliber?
32. Well, I see one here in 32 ACP.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the problem.
I'm just on the Google right now.
32 ACP is nothing.
Yeah. That that's just if you want to kind of ask somebody to go away politely.
Killing rats in the barn.
Right. So okay, we've discussed. Is that pretty much all the Allied guns? Then?
That's the all of the U.S. we have.
Yeah. The U.S. ones.
Yeah.
I see.
I've got a couple of other Allied. Well, let's just start off with this.
That's what stuff's cool.
Okay. All right.
This is actually a pistol.
It's been on the table here long enough. People who are watching on video want to see it.
Right now, it is in pistol configuration. It is
otherwise it'd be a short-barreled rifle. Right?
Otherwise, it would be a short-barreled rifle, and because I haven't spent the $200, I haven't cut the pin because it has a folding stock.
Yes.
And I'm not going to do that.
And yes, and if you're listening now and can't visualize what we're talking about, what is in front of us is if you have played any video game that involves World War II, you surely have seen this gun. I, off the top of my head, can't remember what it's called. It's PP something, right?
This is a PPS 43.
Oh, yes.
Of course, this is the semi-automatic version.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it is pinned so that the stock cannot open. It is in 7.62 by 25 Tokarev.
Okay. Yeah.
And 30-round magazine, and so they
this is
probably the dollar for dollar the cheapest and best submachine gun ever made, dollar for dollar, because they cost nothing to make. There's one machined part in this entire piece.
One machine part. And you were saying it's something that's like
it's the
the sear block, I think. Or
what holds the cartridge.
Oh, the chamber.
The chamber.
Oh,
the chamber block is like a piece that's 1.5 square.
Yeah.
With a hole drilled in it. That's the only machined part in the whole gun. Because
really?
They you can actually buy jigs on the internet that will make if you have a hydraulic press.
Yeah.
And the jigs, you can stamp all of these out, and it will make
It's amazing.
Jim, you have a press in your office.
I do have a press in my office. We may have to stamp one of these out.
I see
And so
this
this is a Russian firearm, correct?
Yes, this was a Russian. This is actually, this particular one is actually Polish.
Oh, okay. And
but,
funny enough, of course, we still are talking allies because at the time, considered an ally. But,
right. This is a modern version of the PPS 43.
Okay.
So this is made in Poland. 7.62 by 25. It really likes military surplus ammo a lot better than the modern stuff because those military surplus is hotter.
Oh, no kidding, huh?
Oh yeah, this thing this has got a return spring on it you wouldn't believe. It will fail to fire on modern ammo.
Doesn't like all that new kitty crap.
No, it wants the old.
Likes it old school.
It wants the old steel core, and you know it when you shot it.
That is cool.
Yeah. So it really enjoys the hotter ammo.
That handguard, if you could even call it that. I mean, it's essentially a barrel shroud. Is that what you would call it?
It's just a heat shield.
Heat shield. It's hilarious. I mean, it's just this stamped steel looking thing with holes drilled in it to let it vent off a little bit. But where would you have? It wasn't designed to be held there.
No, it is designed to be held right.
Held right by the magazine, just above.
On the magazine well.
Yeah.
Yes. And it does have a
muzzle brake.
Muzzle brake, yeah.
If you can call
which
it
is just a loop, so it blows the gas to the sides.
Yeah.
And it's just the cheapest thing ever made, but it works well and reliable.
Who/how was that being used? Because I mean, obviously, it's like. It's not a rifle. It's not, certainly not a pocket pistol. Like, how was that being implemented?
Infantry, guys on the front lines, cleaning houses out.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that would be their main.
This was their main firearm.
Like Battle of Stalingrad. Yep.
That's like a door kicker then.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, there you go. That's in your vocab. Door kicker.
Yeah.
If you say door kicker, Mark knows exactly what you're talking about.
Now I know what you're talking. Well, it's just like it's like that's what I'm most familiar with, Jim.
Yeah.
I haven't kicked in a single door. Not one.
But this was your infantry. 50 guys out on a line going in, and 35 of them limping out.
Their version of the Thompson, if you think about it.
Oh yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. The instant this came out, I immediately recognized it as one of the very characteristic firearms from some of the video games that I've played.
Yeah.
You look at like some of the subguns that I think of when I think of World War II, and funny enough, almost all of them look like they could double as a car muffler. You think of
grease gun.
Yeah, exactly. The grease gun. You've got this PPSH. What was it?
PPS 43.
PPS 43. You have the German one that looked really cylindrical all the way out to the front, and then it just kind of had a little,
40.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
And then you had, of course, the Sten.
Mm-hmm.
All of them looked just so hastily made. I mean, just somebody.
Again, they were stamp them out, and you got one guy who running a machine.
Yeah.
That's making the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been to school for 3 days. The other guys have only been to school 1 day to show how to run a press.
Just pull a lever.
Pull a lever.
Put it here, pull a lever.
Yeah,
Done.
and whether it was day one or the last one that was ever made, they're all the same quality because, unlike some of the other things that we'll talk about here later, the quality you can tell which part of the war they were made.
Oh, okay, interesting. But yeah, these things were so dead simple.
Yeah.
And
maybe the paint job may have gotten a little worse later on, but
right. It does baffle me sometimes when I see firearms like this that you talk about. You're saying these were historically very reliable, and probably in part just because they were so darn simple. And then you look at sometimes now I just get embarrassed when I put together an AR-15 and doesn't run quite right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, somebody with a day of schooling and a press and some metal could make a gun that was more reliable than I did, when I spent all this money and got all these nice parts and put it together myself with the, nice tools and stuff. It's a little bit humbling when I see that happen. But
like you said, though, it's simple. There's less things that have to work, less things to go wrong.
Yeah.
Well, just like if you're dealing with a car that was made in the 60s, the guy had a set of wrenches and a socket set, and he can work on it.
I could do it.
Now you got to have $45 million worth of electronic equipment just to find out that the spark plug's bad.
Yeah. It's the truth.
So, the simple's not bad.
No, it isn't. It isn't. And, you kind
That's
of...
good because I've been described as simple.
Oh,
Jim.
there you go, Mark. Yeah, it's really actually a good thing. But yeah, everybody always thinks back and they think, oh man, guns back then couldn't have been reliable. They were all, built in the Stone Age practically. But it's like, no, they actually could be.
That one's 108 years old.
The design, yeah.
And still
in service.
Still in service.
That's cool. So what else do I know we have another Russian pistol here, right?
We've got 2 more Russian pistols.
2 more, okay. We have the Nagant,
the Nagant
revolver.
pistol, yes. The Nagant revolver. It is
a familiar name.
Same
guy who designed the Mosin Nagant?
The half of the group, yes. The Nagant.
Right, I guess, yeah.
Okay. It is in its own category of pistols. It really is. Because whenever you cock it, I don't camera can pick it up or not, but the slide... cylinder is actually going to slide forward.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And it seals.
Right, yeah.
And so this is the only revolver that can actually be silenced.
That's right.
Because there's no air leakage between the cylinder and the barrel.
Okay, so it's sealing on when it comes forward.
It comes forward, it seals to so you don't have... the guy beside you, if you're shooting a revolver, the guy beside you is getting powder burns if you're shooting this.
Yeah.
Because powder comes out between the cylinder and the barrel.
It's not perfectly sealed up.
It's not sealed up. Whereas this one actually does seal up. And so no gas comes out. Mm-hmm. If you put a can on here, it can actually be silenced.
Now, is that why they did it? Did they actually put suppressors on these pistols? Or was it more just to keep the powder burn off other dudes in the trenches?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of extra mechanics.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they went through a lot to make that. And again, in a time where people normally weren't taking a ton of time.
I wonder if it's something to do with the way the round's designed.
Yeah, I don't know. If you give me just a second, I've got some of the ammo because I didn't want to.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has its own little...
Yeah, the ammo. Because I remember at one point when I was on my college, just turned 18, and I could buy a bunch of guns by myself, buying spree. I remember going on Arms List and stuff and seeing a person that was selling one of these pistols, and I almost got it. But then I remember looking into the ammo. It's super interesting. The ammo.
Whoa.
So, like, yeah, the actual projectile itself is not sticking up out of the case. If you just looked at this and you didn't actually look down inside of the case, you would see...
You'd think it was an empty.
You'd think it was an empty.
You would think it was probably maybe like a .30 carbine.
Yeah, yeah.
And once it's fired, it actually, because where it is necked down above the cartridge, above the bullet,
Yeah.
once it comes through, it almost does look like a .30
Yeah.
carbine because it's about the same diameter.
Gosh, what a peculiar shape. And where it necks down, it actually comes in and then goes back out again, almost like an hourglass type shape a little bit,
just
or like
kinda
a trumpet.
It flares out.
Yeah. I haven't actually seen one of these in person before, but that's super neat.
Do you know the? I mean, what's the reason for this design?
Yeah,
I've
sort
never
of
seen it
the
before.
why behind it.
I have no idea. As Russians are, they're drunk on vodka, so who knows? Let's make a round.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect that move.
I don't know. It's fun to shoot. I don't shoot a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is fun to shoot.
So it's a 7.62 Nagant.
7.62 Nagant.
Did we have another pistol in here that was shooting that, or something in here that was shooting the 7.62 Nagant?
No, that was 7.62 by 25. The Tokarev.
Oh, Tokarev. Okay, right. You wouldn't be able to reload for that Nagant.
Yes,
would
you can.
You can.
Yep.
Yes, you
Now,
can.
how does that work? What you got to get a whole special.
It's a special set of dies.
Yeah.
And no more than I shoot it, and it's one of those ammos that whenever they make it and you see it, you buy it.
Okay.
Because it's a one run a year. Like a lot of the other military surplus stuff, they make one run a year. They make it for, I don't know, 6 days or whatever it is. They put them on the shelf, and in 12 months they'll make it again.
Wow.
Because there's not enough market on it to.
Right.
Sure.
So.
Right.
I mean, it's cool that they're still doing it. That there's,
It's great. I mean, like with the 38 long Colt, it's something I'm going to have to wildcat because I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's hard to find. I can't find it. So.
That's wild.
And I do that with some of my other military rifles, is wildcat stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30-06. It makes so many. You can make so many different things out of 30-06.
The parent cartridge too.
It is
so many things.
It is.
That's pretty cool.
Even clear down to 45 rim Colt.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of a 30-06 case?
Yeah, same diameter base.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
cool. Going back to this Nagant pistol here.
Yes.
There's like a, how do I explain it? So it's fairly revolver looking. Like you said, there is the unique mechanism of the fact that it seals that cylinder up to the barrel. But there's also like this lever thing, and you flipped it up when you first picked it up.
Well, it's the same. It's reminiscent of the single action Army Colt.
Okay.
And that's how you load it. It's a 7-round.
Oh, so you
Okay.
load it in
Right.
from the back.
Right.
So
This does not swing.
It doesn't swing.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just like the. So you're immediately at a disadvantage to reload whenever you're in a military situation.
Sure.
And you've shot your 7th round. Now you have to take the 2 minutes it is or 3 minutes to unload, and then reload.
You unload it by swinging that thing down and then pushing that sort of button on the front?
No.
How do you unload it?
I guess you use a pencil. And you hope they fall out.
Usually you got a tool
Yeah.
in the holster. When you bought, so I'm looking at one right now. It's the whole kit. It's the gun, the holster, everything. And in the holster, like right here would be, let's use this one for example.
It's a cleaning rod,
It's a
basically.
cleaning rod, basically.
Oh,
and it
yeah,
sits in a
little
little
poker
hole
tool.
right there, and
Just
you
a
pull
little
that out.
punch.
You punch that
What
round
a
out.
screw around that is.
Yeesh.
Yeah, I have the whole kit. I just didn't bring everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a situation where you can just call timeout.
Right. Hey,
Right.
hold on a minute, guys. I need to reload.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you give me 5 minutes?
They must have been just laughing away while they were making this thing. A bunch of people all drunk. They're like, and then you know what we'll do? We'll make
More
it
vodka!"
impossible to unload. It'll be hilarious to watch them trying to fiddle around with our design.
But the guy next year is really going to appreciate it.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's not going to get powder burns on the side of his arm.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I'll risk my life to be courteous.
That is cool.
Yeah. Okay. Then the last item that I have from the comm block countries is the TT-53, or the Tokarev M57.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
Depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
I
But this
see.
is Yugoslavian, so it is an M57.
Oh, okay.
It also is in Tokarev, 7.62 by 25.
So it's
what's
shooting
the-
the same thing that this
It shoots the exact same thing as what this does.
the
PPS 40
PPS 43,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
So,
Same thing. So that's obviously a
Yes.
good thing for them.
Right.
And it looks just kind of like a Russian 1911-ish looking thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Smaller diameter bullet, probably
Right.
a little hotter.
Okay.
And these also, all of the military surplus stuff that you get, a lot of it is magnetic. So all of the bullets are steel core.
Okay.
It's a bad thing for body armor.
How so?
Okay.
Oh,
It's going to penetrate.
not the magnetic part. Yeah.
Yeah.
The steel
Like
core
I know.
The steel core part
got
makes it really bad for body armor.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like
got
with
it.
green tip 5.56, they wanted to get rid of that because it's steel penetrator, and you can penetrate body armor with it.
Okay.
So the military surplus stuff they don't like.
I checked that one out.
Absolutely.
I love the grips because the grips just have that star on them, you know.
Right.
And then what is the FRSJ on there? Must stand for something communist.
Probably maybe the factory was built in, something like that.
Okay, got
Those
it.
were actually designed very late in World War II. There are some that were World War II.
Well,
Do they essentially
that is the
is that the upgraded version? Or
that
the-
is very similar to the TT-30,
Yeah.
which is the Russian Tokarev pistol. That's just the 27 years later they started making them in Russia, in Yugoslavia.
There's you want to compare them side by side.
yeah.
They're-
Did they essentially steal a 1911 on the battlefield and just bring it to
Who knows what they did?
the drinking party and say, hey, let's make one?
It's a little bit more. It's slimmer.
It is a smidge slimmer. It definitely has a more straight up and down grip. In fact, it's almost like completely straight up and down, just about.
Right.
It's so interesting to pick these things up because you just see like this sort of jump back into history as to what they were using. And especially when you look at stuff from other countries, like the 1911, I can't even put my finger on what it is, but when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that's American. And when I look at this thing, I'm like, yeah, it seems kind of
Right.
Eastern European, Russian. Even like, of course, when you drive around any of those other countries, a lot of times you see just the buildings look different, and a lot of stuff looks different. The cultures are different. And just
Swimsuits.
yeah, the swimsuits are different. But then when you look at their firearms, sometimes you're like, yeah, I can't put my finger on it, but something about that just looks kind of communist and Eastern European, Russian.
I think you just get used to seeing certain stylings
Yeah,
in
Yeah.
those places.
that is cool though. That is a neat gun.
But
Very cool. But yeah, very reminiscent
I was
of
going
the
to
old
say,
1911. We'll hold it up here for the camera.
reminiscent.
Camera can see.
I
That's
mean,
cool.
all the controls appear to be
Yeah. Very, very similar. So there we have our comm block stuff. And Allied, for the most part, we've done, right?
We've got one French.
Ah, yes. The palm pocket pistol.
Yes, the pocket pistol.
This thing is hilariously small.
It is in the massive powered 25 ACP. You can carry 40 mags in your pocket, and or $4 and change in the other pocket and have the same amount of stuff.
Yeah.
Just nothing to it. This is a French pistol, and it's a unique Model 10. It was made under several different names, all made in the same factory. It is a John Browning knockoff
Yeah.
of the Baby Browning.
okay.
Baby Browning.
Yeah. We probably could segue into the Germans when we get done talking about this one, because more than likely this probably came back with an American off of a German.
Okay.
Okay.
Because the Germans took them away from the French, stuck them in their pockets just as, nightstand protection, what have you. And so Lots of officers carried these in their pockets, the Nazi officers, just because they were simple to, size of a pack of cigarettes.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so incredibly small. I can't even imagine that you would have hardly done anything with one of these things. I mean,
it's one of those things where you would up close and personal. Probably, literally touching the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you are in a scuffle.
Yes. Yeah.
To put it into perspective, let's even hold it up next to this tiny little microphone thing that we have here. This is a microphone that MC Ryan has set up next to the table that gets a bunch of the audio. I'll try not to point it right at Nick's face. But look at this thing in the camera there.
Well, here, Jim, I'll give you my Costanza-size wallet here.
Oh, yeah, let's see that.
And it's much smaller than that.
Smaller than Mark's wallet.
Yeah, or a cell phone.
Oh, yeah, I mean, a cell phone just dwarfs this thing. Like an iPhone. Look at that thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge.
I gotta hold that thing
compared to this pistol. Yeah, this is hilarious. It's got one of those little the mag releases on the bottom.
Yeah, reminiscent of a European mag release.
That magazine, it might as well be a Pez dispenser.
Actually, Pez are bigger.
Yeah, they are. I mean, that is awesome. I can't even imagine, like, I feel like if somebody ever pulled one of these on me, I would just laugh.
I don't even know.
Look at this thing here. Yeah. Kind of like a little bit bigger, as you'd expect
about
on a
twice
22.
the size. It's about the size of a Tic Tac.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even hold it like you would.
Yeah.
Like you'd almost. I have no idea how folks shot these things, but like if I was in a scuffle,
remember there's no recoil, so you can get by with one finger.
Okay, it just seems like even just getting a grip on the darn thing,
you're gonna snap the heck out of your fingers if you hold it.
You're right. You can't do that.
Right, because the slide's going to come back and you're going to have serious. Well, if you can call it serious, slide bite.
You'd probably just prevent it from operating.
Yeah, you just turn it into a single shot if you had your hand behind it. Oh, whoops. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because it's really not gonna be super poppy or anything. So
that's cool.
I like it.
It's very unique.
It's very unique. It says right on it.
In fact, actually, the pistol grip says unique on it.
I thought I was about to say that.
That must be why the word came to my mind.
It's got a lion on it too, so that's
Yeah.
cool. What's it say? Yeah.
It says a bunch of stuff on the slide.
Ardennes, Pyrenees, something or other, what you call it. Something.
Yeah.
We'll have to get a translator.
Yeah. It says French.
Love it.
And
I like that.
And do not insert the only dropped once joke anywhere while we're talking about this.
Oh, okay. Got it. I don't know that one, to be honest.
It's French.
You've never heard?
It's brand new. It's only been dropped once
by the Frenchman that dropped it.
Are they just notorious for dropping
my
stuff?
Moss 36 I brought on the rifle, how it was in pristine shape. It was only dropped once by the Frenchman that dropped it.
Okay.
They give up and drop it.
Now I
It's
get
Oh.
it. Okay. Yep. Following.
Roger that.
Send all the hate mail to.
Yes. Not us. Okay. I'm following now.
Okay.
Real
All
quick
right.
thing I want to cover. I didn't have a chance to get one. I haven't gotten one yet. The British, we haven't covered anything on them yet.
Oh, right.
Kind of a cool story with these is the U.S. actually designed them for a whole different caliber, 38-200, and they were lend-leased to the British. These guns were, so it's kind of a cool.
That's the Victory.
The Victory,
The Victory Smith & Wesson, yeah.
Yeah, they were lend-leased to the.
Well, you just picked one up. I was.
The Victory. Yes, the Victory. It was in 38 Smith & Wesson.
What did the British carry? I don't think any of the pistols on here are British.
No, I haven't been able to find one for a good price that I want to spend. They carried the Webley, two different, depending on when it would have been, either the 455 Webley or Ely, I think is what they call it around, or the 38 Smith & Wesson Webley.
Okay, so the 38 Smith & Wesson is pretty easy to imagine, right? Because it's
just a short
revolver.
They're both revolvers.
Oh, they're both revolvers,
Yep,
so they didn't have any semi-auto pistols.
They had the exact same handgun they carried over from World War I, which was the 455, which is very similar to our 45 ACP.
Only it's rimmed.
Only that it's rimmed.
It's longer also.
Yeah.
It's longer than a 45 ACP. It's rimmed.
Okay.
So
you'll find some of the 455 Webleys on the market that the cylinder has been cut down a little bit to accept 45 ACP.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking for one of those more than I am the 455 because, of course,
it's hard to get ammo.
Exactly, hard to get ammo for, and plus it's 45 ACP. You can get that ammo about anywhere.
Yeah,
right.
That's interesting. Were they like one of the only ones to not upgrade to semi-auto pistol?
They didn't upgrade. I think maybe no. I don't think they did in World War II. I think after that would have been the high power. Would have been their next handgun. That would have been the only semi-auto.
They just knocked on John Mose Browning's door and said, "Hey, we want one too."
The high power's been one of those guns. It's those handguns. It's solved conflicts all over the world.
Yeah, but it's so weird how you almost never hear about it.
Yeah,
it's so overshadowed by the 1911.
That's one of the guns. Like,
it's basically a double stack 9mm 1911 almost, right?
Kind of a offshoot talking point.
So wait, hold on. It's the original 2011.
It's the original 2011.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, we've just flipped the world on its head. All right, sorry,
kind of a
distracted.
Cool off point in a way. The Nagant revolvers are kind of becoming. The price on them are skyrocketing recently. It's crazy. Back about 10 years ago, you could have got them for $100.
No way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You probably got yours. Yeah. Probably only $150.
And you said what? 7 now? 8 now?
Oh, they're probably pushing $600-$700.
As soon as they stopped importing.
Oh, okay.
You know,
sure.
Mose Nagant went from an $85 to $100 rifle to, $350.
Yeah.
And people were like, people who have them say, well, I wouldn't pay $350 for one of them. But, they've got 3 or 4 in the safe.
Right.
So, of course, they're not going to.
Yeah, and everything from Russia
got
really expensive.
But whenever they, you could buy 440 round spam can of ammo for $85, and now, they're $250 or whatever they are. I haven't bought any spam cans in forever, so... But yeah, it's just a supply and demand. The supply dried up, and the demand is still there.
Yeah.
So
the high powers are there too right now. Like when I was at auction recently, there was a high power went for $1,000 plus. And back in about 10 years ago, they were probably only $300-$400 handguns.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're just becoming. They're such a reliable gun, and a popular gun. The market's just going up and up and up on them.
Crazy. What do we have here next that we should talk about? You said this is a great way to time to segue into Germany stuff.
You want to knock out the Japanese real quick?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and knock
the Japanese first.
So this is the Japanese Nambu.
This is such a cool pistol.
This is one that I didn't think we'd ever have in our collection, but it's a really neat gun. These were originally designed in the 1920s, mid-20s. So before this, they had what's called the Papa Nambu. Just a couple different features, way stuff works.
Well, was it bigger? Because I feel like if you call anything the Papa,
it was a little bit
bigger.
I believe a little bit bigger, not terribly bigger, but
okay.
So this actually shoots its own unique round called 8mm Nambu.
Okay.
So you won't find ammo for it.
You won't.
No.
Have you ever shot this one?
I have not yet. Ammo, you're paying over $1 a round.
Okay, so you better make it count.
Exactly. And plus, they were never known to be reliable.
Really?
No kidding, huh?
You'll maybe only get 2 shots out before it jams.
No way. It's got to be like one of the only Japanese things ever made that's not reliable.
Yeah. It's something about just the way it feels in the hand. It feels nice. I call it the Japanese Luger, if you look at it.
I mean, it does look... when you first brought it out, I thought it was a Luger until I saw the sort of plunger... I guess you could call it the plunger...
Yeah, what is that on the back?
So this is how you cock or basically the slide in a way very similar.
Yeah, you pull it straight out the back. The opening for the ejection port is on the top of the gun. So that's pretty unique. And
it's very similar like a 1911. It's got your 1911 and Luger style magazine release.
Yeah, right on the side.
This one's kind of got a cool story. It was made in the Tokyo Arsenal in the 20s. And the Tokyo Arsenal only made them for, I think, 3 years. So it's kind of a rare...
And you said this was the middle year, right?
I believe so. That's what my dad was saying. It's right in the middle, he thinks. Kind of odd safety. So right now, I believe... So right now, the forward's in fire.
Okay.
You turn this around, you're on safe.
Yeah, that's not really something you can manipulate with your firing hand thumb very easily.
And then
it's
what's funny,
flip around all the way to the very front of the whole frame.
If you think of like an AK in a way, how there's the big paddle safety on the side.
Yeah.
There's a detent that will stop your safety from going all the way down.
Yeah.
This one doesn't. And if you look, somebody had done it in the past. If you look at that grip, you can see where it came down and scratched in the side of the grip.
Oh, you could go all
and I've done it before on it, and it's just, you got to be very careful.
Yeah, I see.
But
yeah, otherwise you could keep going right into the wood grip and scratch it up.
Mm-hmm. These were famous, yeah, and these were also famous in World War II for...
It literally looks like somebody took a steel punch to the frame and was like, yeah, it looks like the safety needs to line up with about there, and just took a hammer and went dink, and then that was the little spot where the safety is supposed to stop. It's got all these, of course, Japanese characters all over it. This one has a different trigger guard than you said would have been.
Yeah, so the early guns would have had... They're called summer trigger guards. So if you kind of imagine, it's basically a big circle. So it would have just came around right here and kind of lined up there.
So it would have been smaller.
Smaller. Yeah, they call it the small ring trigger. This is also known as the winter trigger.
A little bit bigger for gloved hands.
Gloved hands. Plus, later in the war, they opened them up. So it's a very sweet feeling gun in the hand. Magazine is stiff to get out.
Yeah.
Well, that's got the more sweep like a 1911 as opposed to
it does.
As opposed to what you were talking about with the comm block stuff, which is basically straight up and down.
Straight up and down, right? This has such a cool mag base plate too. Like it's got this textured thumb and finger dimple here on the bottom of the mag, like something that none of these other guns have.
The Luger has something similar.
Oh yeah, the Luger actually does have something pretty similar, but it just makes it easier to grab onto and pull it out rather than relying on it to just fall out of the gun.
Well, it's even it's rounded as well.
It is, yeah,
You know?
yeah. This gun actually doesn't feel so much like it would shred your fingers.
Another cool talking point on that. So I remember the first episode we were talking about the mum or the chrysanthemum on the rifles. This one, you will not find one of these on this gun.
Really?
Because all the rifles were property of the emperor, so they were owned by basically the government.
Yeah.
This gun was designed by the government in a way, but the officers had to buy their own gun. They were not issued.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you got to buy your own pistol if you're an officer.
So that's like if you joined the military in the U.S. and the government had a design M9 pistol. They said, oh yeah, you can use this, but you got to buy it.
Exactly. That's you will not find a mum on that gun.
So since they weren't owned by the government, the mum being the symbol of the emperor, those were never owned by the emperor, so they never put the mum on them.
Now, is that because was there some sort of Japanese culture thing where they just didn't like pistols and they're like, no, we don't want those to be associated with the emperor, or was it just a cost
maybe because
thing?
It didn't work that good.
I have no idea.
Yeah, maybe they were embarrassed.
I don't want to be associated with that one.
Jam-o-matic. It's
I have no idea why there's no mum on it. That was something I found out, that you had to buy your own pistol if you're an officer.
Yeah, really cool. These designs of pistols, this and the Luger, are sweet because they have this fixed barrel that tapers down from the actual action, I guess you could call it. And, everything happens inside the action just above where your hand is holding it, but then out towards the end of the barrel. It's just, it literally is just a barrel. I mean, it looks so incredibly simple. And I just don't even know how to explain it properly. But
it looks on the outside, it looks simple, but on the inside, it's really complicated.
There's
I can
probably
imagine.
4 or 5 long springs in there
and that's
not.
Again, on the outside, you were talking about simple being better, and in this case, it is because that's so complicated that
Okay. Yeah, I imagine in many ways probably having a big slide that's on an op rod with a spring is probably the simpler way, even though on the outside it maybe looks more complex.
And when we're in a civilian world, shooting dirt, grime is not necessarily an issue. When you're hunkered down in a hole on some volcanic island somewhere,
you don't have much.
Tight tolerances are not necessarily good.
Yeah, they're not really your friend, exactly.
Yeah. It's great. It's great, when we're shooting here. Because all we have to worry about is, the brass not hitting the guy next to us.
Yeah,
and but
ask a Russian to come up with something like this, and there you'd have sloppy tolerances, and it'd probably be super reliable.
Works every time.
This one was when we first got it. It was a little loose. We had to buy new springs and everything for it.
Oh, okay.
But this one has a knowledge, as you see.
Whoa.
Oh, that just happened.
Yeah.
You just pulled the whole trigger guard and trigger off.
All it is the magazine release. That's
Wait,
why
you hit the
I don't-
magazine release to take the trigger off?
I don't know if I'll ever shoot this gun, Dad and I. It just because it's that easy to pull the trigger power out. And
that seems like
even
it
though
could be
the
a potential issue.
even though the slide and is still nice and tight in there, I just don't know. We might shoot a couple rounds through it.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody watches Military Arms channel on YouTube.
Yeah, sometimes.
He's he's also that way. He's like, I don't know if this is worth shooting. I just talked to him in email the other day about this, and he's like, yeah, it's one gun. It's not very pleasant to shoot because you never know what's going to happen.
Interesting.
It's very scary.
So
I
you
wonder
hit the
why somebody
magazine-
would make...
As I'm having trouble putting it back in now.
Right.
Yeah, I'll mess with that.
I
a
don't
little
know
bit.
if I would ever be able to put the thing back in.
Oh, I've gotten it back in. It's just a pain in the butt.
I wonder what they were thinking when they were like, you know what we should do? We should make a magazine release that also releases one of the most critical components of the pistol, i.e., the trigger.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
It
Something that
seems
people
like
hit
a
fairly
flaw.
frequently, the mag release, could also... I mean, that's
Multi-purpose.
crazy. Yeah,
There we go.
multi-purpose, right, yeah. Yeah, it's like if
As you can see,
Case
I didn't
in
even
point,
I didn't
Jim.
even pull it.
Yeah, it's like if you had an AR-15 and every time you flicked it off safety, the upper receiver just fell off.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, yeah, that's also the takedown pin.
That's
Yeah.
also a take.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanted that?
Yeah,
But yeah,
there you go. Got it back on.
it's I don't know. There's a company that makes the ammo. It's about $1.10 a round.
It sounds
it's-
scary.
And it's not a very powerful round anyway.
Yeah.
It's something very similar, like a 38 little auto round or nothing.
Well, 8mm, it would be closer to a 32.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 32.
It's longer, but it's closer
Okay.
to a
It's at
32.
32, yeah.
Yeah, so they did all that work to just not even shoot a very potent bullet.
And then they had what's called the baby Nambu, which was a smaller version. And those are very rare. I've only seen a couple of those. They're probably scaled down about a quarter.
Yeah? Huh.
Interesting. I'd be curious to know, like, its reputation among, like, you said that it was officers had to, like, were most guys like, nah?
But the guys carried a sword, too.
Yeah. I'd rather have a sword go running towards you than
I'd
a
rather
gun that would jam.
a sword's going to be more reliable than...
Yeah.
Seems like it.
And as you know, they basically charged every time when they were getting ready to die. They would charge you. What would you rather have? A 3-foot-long sword that could cut a guy's head off, or this that jams?
Well, particularly, there's no
Now-
there's no button on the sword that makes the blade fall
Just gonna
off.
say, now little did people know that as soon as you grab the handle of the sword, the blade comes off. Is that's the only Japanese pistol here, right? The other ones, so we have
Japanese guns are very, I'd say, rare.
Yeah.
You
hard to
don't-
get.
Hard to get because a lot of times when you were in the jungle, they would kill. And this is kind of a weird point to go to. I don't know if anybody knows about Japanese culture and how the military worked. If you've seen Hacksaw Ridge,
Yeah.
if you see where they're in that tunnel, the officers basically kill themselves, and they don't surrender.
Right.
They stab themselves, and they have a guy cut their head off into a special mat that they lay out. It's very unorthodox way.
That's
but
wild, man.
a lot of these guns were either, I've heard, buried or just destroyed.
Well, they were in tunnels.
Tunnels.
Yeah.
U.S. guys aren't going to go in a tunnel. Until Vietnam, they were known as the tunnel rats. But yeah, a lot of these were found in either chests that the officers kept in their quarters. It's just, you don't see them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's pretty
Well,
wild.
That's cool that you guys have one. I mean, it's
That is.
It was kind of a rare, we just stumbled upon it and the price was right.
There you go. Now, what do we go to next?
I think Germany's the only place we've got left.
Yeah, we got
Okay.
quite a few of those.
And what do you talk about with Germany first?
Do we start off with the creme de la creme? Or,
Well, we've been doing age.
yeah, so that probably would be the first one, wouldn't it?
That would be this one,
Would it be that one? Or the
1914.
this would be, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
So we'll start, and this, I think, because this one is actually dated earlier too. So
All right. Now this is exciting.
this is, if anybody knows anything about military handguns, you're gonna know what this is.
This is the Luger.
Luger. This one's kind of a cool one.
And this is a real Luger?
This is a real, authentic, early Luger.
Because I've heard that there's
There's a company that's remaking them.
fake Lugers, so to speak.
Well, they were made in China. And,
China.
They were used in China and other countries as well.
So anybody knows anything about Lugers, also known as the P08 Luger, I believe 1907, 1908 is when they were starting to be developed. This one's actually dated 1911. So it's a pretty early one.
Wow.
And of course, you got your wood grips, magazine. Kind of a cool feature is this one's got a wood base plate on the magazine.
Yeah. Is similar in many ways to that the Japanese pistol there with the finger groove for it, or the finger dimple for you to grab onto.
Yeah,
the Nambu.
time frame between the Luger
So this was developed in 1908, early 1900s. These were 1914 is when the Papa Nambu was developed.
Okay.
Of course, Type 14. This one originally was 1920s.
Okay.
Is when this one came out.
Yeah, oddly similar.
But I'd assume, like, aesthetically, extremely similar. Functionally, I'd assume there's some differences.
Yeah, well,
So this is a standard slide, type internal slide. This one's your toggle.
Right. Yeah, the Nambu has what you would expect a gun to do, which is just it goes back into some springs and it goes forward into some springs. But this has the, what do I think I called it once, like the drawbridge, or what do you call it?
I could see drawbridge, yeah. It's also known,
like that.
really the name is the toggle system.
Okay.
So it's when it's empty, it sits back like that. The catch in there is kind of broken right now.
Okay.
Okay.
But once an empty mag's in there, it locks back like that. But it's a very elegant gun.
So unique. Even the top ejection, though, is similar. When they did the Nambu, they had it have a top ejection, unlike a traditional side ejection. But this Luger does the same thing, where you would shoot, and then this would, every time you shoot, that happens, right? Like that comes back like that.
Yep. Kind of a cool story on these. The U.S. these were in the U.S. military trials against the 1911.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not a lot of people know about that.
Wait, what? The U.S. was
So in
I'm
trying to remember, 1910, around there, when they were having the new military trials for the new military handgun before World War I. Of course, you had your 1911, you had your 03 hammerless, Savage designed a gun, and then, of course, from overseas, you had the Luger.
Right.
They actually designed it in 45. So
Adam Maxwell was telling us about this.
There was only two ever designed.
Yeah.
And actually a cool story.
Because who designed it?
Luger.
Yeah, that's right. That's
was it
dumb
Luger?
question.
There was somebody, it was in Germany, of course, but they designed it in 45, and 2 were only shipped over for the trials.
Yeah.
But there's actually a company, I'd say, called Lugerman, and they're actually remaking them in 45.
No way.
Yeah, and they're about $8,000. Yeah.
They seem oddly not that easy to use.
Well, let's go back to the dirt thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very complicated action.
Very complicated. So lots of things happening. Lots of hinges.
And we'll get on a cool talk about when we talk about another gun here in a sec. Why this was only World War I, you only saw these, and they didn't carry over into World War II because they figured some issues out. But yeah, this one's all numbers matching.
Remember that they were using that in World War I in trench warfare.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool.
That filthy mess of trench warfare.
Is this a takedown pin?
So
essentially for the top? There's
that's
like a
how when
paddle lever looking thing.
It's kind of a very difficult takedown. So you have to have your toggle all the way back.
Yeah.
And then turn that lever down.
Okay.
And which then releases your whole slide system. It's a little bit of a pain.
Complex.
But then you got your big safety.
In a place that makes sense.
Exactly. It's not a bad place to get to it. Of course, your landed loop back here, but it's a very...
Just like German cars, things are in places that make sense.
Yep. Not a bad shooting gun. We shot this about a week ago. Shoots pretty good.
It shoots a 9mm Luger.
9mm Luger.
Yep.
This was the very first that I'm 100% sure of. The very first gun to have that 9mm cartridge. And that's how you get the name 9mm Luger. So
that's cool.
We talk about things with these guns, transferring over time or, somewhat staying the same. And I'd be curious to know how similar the process is. Like you said, like you've got like these trials for like what's going to be the next thing. I mean, it seems like that same thing goes on.
Oh yeah,
today. Oh, it's very similar.
Yeah, it is pretty wild too how you see definitely some designs shine more than others. Like a Luger is so cool, right? Like really, really cool. But you don't see any pistols made anymore that look like Lugers.
Right.
Unless they're for historical purposes, like it sounds like those one folks are doing.
Highly complicated.
Yeah, very complicated. And then it sort of, everything winds up coming back to simple and reliable.
Simple, reliable, practical.
The Swiss even made those. And those
really?
are more desirable. The Swiss Lugers are more desirable,
Well,
and they're
because they're
built
Swiss.
to a T because, of course, you think Swiss watch, Swiss Army knife. As you saw, the Swiss rifle I had last time, it's such a beautiful built
perfection.
rifle.
So nice.
Yeah, the Swiss Lugers are coming into the country now, and they're bringing a pretty penny.
Yeah.
And then they had them in different barrel lengths as well. Like the artillery was, it was like a 14-inch barrel or something like that.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, he's
Also,
drawing a sword.
how I know this one's an actual military one and not a commercial one, because they did make them commercially in the early 1900s. This one's a 9mm, of course. The commercial were in 30 Mauser, I believe, which is the broom handle shot. It's a little bit different round, but I believe that's how the commercial ones were. Mm-hmm. But they're sweet gun.
They are. Very, very cool gun. What, you said that they're, actually, it's funny because I never knew that there were other German pistols, but you said there are some.
Oh, well, there's the PPK, and then this one is probably next.
Yeah, and I think this one.
This is a Mauser.
Okay.
1914.
Okay.
Also known as the Humpback, I believe.
Yeah. They started out with a 1910, and then the next model was a 1914.
Yeah.
Like I said, 32 ACP.
Smaller pistol. Almost even seems like Beretta took a design key
Yeah, a
from
little
them
bit,
on that
a little bit
fixed-
bigger than a Ruger LCP.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
That fixed barrel with the slide that sort of comes down and hugs it out front
Right.
is pretty a unique look.
Yeah.
You know how doesn't the Beretta M9 does a similar thing, right? The slide doesn't doesn't extend the
fixed
full
slide.
length.
It's a reciprocating slide that goes around the barrel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then the barrel is exposed.
Right. The barrel's exposed
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
on the front half.
Is that just to shave weight?
Weight, I'm assuming. It balances pretty good. It's still a little heavy, nose heavy, but imagine an extra couple of 3 ounces would really.
Well, yeah, and then if you've
throw
got
it
a
off.
full mag, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And then it also has the you said this is kind of a European
Yeah,
thing,
that's
this
a
mag
European-
release that's
yeah,
on the bottom.
on the bottom is the
thumb release.
Yeah. Which is a little slower than the.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
But again, it's simpler. So there's no
Right.
spring to
Okay,
Just-
sure.
It's just
Yeah.
right there.
the next one in that evolution. Then
got
they
the
made
little firing pin at the rear, you know.
Yeah.
I mean that is pretty simple.
that actually the. You got to put the mag in order to.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually go forward
It
until the
will
mag
not
is
go
in.
forward until the mag is in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa, there she goes.
That was the mag release. Or, I mean, the slide release.
Right. That is the slide release by putting the mag in.
The magazine
When
is
it-
the slide
and-
release. That's
and
cool.
So, basically,
I'm just
it's
glad the trigger
loaded.
didn't fall out.
But the thing is it's loaded.
Yeah, you're
As soon
ready to
as
go.
soon as
Boom.
you
Yeah,
put the mag in,
at
it's
that
loaded.
point,
She's hot.
It's
Yeah.
hot.
It's like a lot of guns, modern guns. Like I know my Glocks I carry Glock, and my Glock's this way. Sometimes when I put a mag in and I see it really hard, that slide will go forward on its own.
Yeah.
So
Man,
So it doesn't
can I see that
it doesn't
thing, John?
unload the mag as quickly with that thumb mag release, but it does load it quite quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, 32 ACP.
And then you kind of, I guess you got this hook to.
Yeah.
Well, you just gotta. I find you gotta push it.
And then, like I said, it was a 1910, and then the model of 1914, then a model of 1934,
Yeah.
and then
HSC would have been involved.
HSC, which is what Nick's got here, is the next one in that line of evolution.
Okay. And they actually gave up the Luger for these.
Well, not for these. These are more officer pistols.
Oh, I see.
In fact,
The Luger was more of like a every guy's pistol.
That would have been more of your police officer.
well,
just
when I say that, these are like for the generals and whatnot.
generals.
The guys who aren't going to ever fire them.
Okay, got
More of
it.
a
They've
a
got it
dress-
on their side in their dress uniform or
Yeah,
what have you.
got it.
They don't have the big hard shell Luger,
holster this big. Yeah,
Holster.
you're gonna have something that big. Normal,
but
officer would have that.
He's
on there.
the more for show than for shooting. It's a 32 for goodness sake.
Right. Right.
So
makes a statement more.
Yeah, it's
more
just
than anything.
You know, for personal protection, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you said that was also kind of what
this
is,
one.
right?
This one, if you look at the grips,
mm-hmm.
they're cross hatched. This one goes across the back. That one goes across the front. But this is kind of the evolution. This one's 2 steps after this. This is 30. There's 30 years difference between these two.
Oh, okay. Is that a Walther?
Yes, this is actually. Oh no, this is a Mauser. This is a Mauser.
It's a Mauser.
So this
it
is
has
Mauser.
a very Walther look to it.
It does. This is the Mauser HSC. I think 38, 7.65, or is that 32? I can't remember. I know they made them in 380 later. I can't remember. I've never shot that one.
7.65,
which would be
7.65, which is 32.
32. Okay, I can never remember. This is one we just recently acquired. My grandfather passed away not too long ago, and this was actually my great grandfather pulled this off a German officer over.
Oh wow,
that's cool.
That we've been told. I've never met my great grandfather, so I never know actually how the story goes. But yeah, this one you can see. Of course, you got your wear on your barrel, upper slide. This one's kind of a cool little one. And it's got the original matching holster to go with.
Oh,
and
that's pretty sweet.
I've never looked because I've not had this long. Where's the serial number on this thing?
That holster is cool too because it's got the spare mag.
Yep, it's got
right on it.
So you got your mag that goes with the gun, and then you have a spare mag pocket there.
Yeah, this is a very kind of classic German looking pistol though. It's got the trigger guard that kind of swoops right up into the end of the.
Also, you can tell it's original because it's got I would assume it's original for sure because it's got the 1942 dated there at the top.
Oh yeah, on the holster.
Wow.
But yeah, it has that trigger guard that swoops up right to the end of the frame. It's very, it doesn't kind of come right up to the frame and have any hard edges. It's really smooth there, which kind of makes me curious, like what that's like to hold.
It's not a bad little gun,
no,
really.
It's not bad to hold at all. And then it has this this really pronounced sort of part where the area between your thumb and your index finger goes on the back of the grip. That's super. It curves in very dramatically almost.
Looks like it fits your hand really good, Jim, actually.
Yeah, it does fit my hand quite well, but Cal 7.65 millimeter. Cool gun. It's got the groove that goes all the way along the top. It's just got those kind of battle sights.
Yep.
Real short little stubby things. No white markings or anything like that. No tritium sights.
No.
Nothing crazy like that. But
I've got a little project going here.
Oh, yeah.
This is actually a Walther, Model 8, probably from the 20s.
Yeah. It doesn't have any grips on it right now.
It does not have any grips.
Part of the project, right?
I got it just like this, and with the holster. These were definitely a lot of presentation guns.
Okay.
Apparently, there was one that went at auction a few years ago, and it had Goebel's name on it. It was issued to him. It was like $240,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. And
Yeah,
that's a pistol that's not a whole lot bigger than that tiny little French gun.
Right. It's it is literally the size of an LCP.
Yeah.
Ruger. I mean, for comparison size.
Yeah. Wow.
And I do believe it is in the 25 ACP as well. Yes, 25 ACP.
Okay.
Just a little guy.
Yeah. So,
But a cool pistol.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's quite unique.
right.
Well, how do you find grips for something like that?
There are several different places that purchase, guns that are damaged or rusted out or whatever, and then they sell parts.
Oh, they'll salvage things like the grips and stuff. And when you say, is that kind of the biggest thing that you have as far as a project goes on that gun, or what else will you be? When you say project, what kind of?
Well, it'll need sight, or the grips, the medallions that hold the grips on.
Okay.
And I have really not gone through it, taken it apart, and seen what I need on the inside.
Yeah.
So,
what's that like taking these guns apart for you guys? Like, there's no like nice
Manual.
Google YouTube videos probably on.
There is just about everything. Everybody's
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
there's
it's
a
so
little
cool.
lever right here.
Yeah.
that.
Oh, you just pull the whole trigger guard down.
Yeah, you pull the trigger guard down, and then that releases the slide. And I don't want springs to fly, so I'm not going to.
Right. No, that's fair. That's kind of what I was thinking, though. You sort of open those things up, and you don't exactly know what to always expect.
Right. And
are you going to refinish that as
well?
No,
I will never refinish it ever.
Leave it.
Yeah. Just like on this Model 14, Germany, if you can say one thing, is everything was a puzzle.
Yeah.
Every one of their guns to take apart was a puzzle. This one, like with the 1911, it's you push one pin and the thing comes apart.
Right.
You've got to turn this and squeeze that and
pull that back.
Pull this back, and they're just a nightmare to take apart and put back together.
Man, what a mess.
Yeah.
Rub your stomach, pat your head at the same time.
Yeah.
All sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I think the only thing we've got left is we each brought one.
Yeah. What is it?
P38.
Yeah, this guy here. This is kind of like the main service pistol?
This is the service pistol from World War II for the Germans.
Mm-hmm. I guess I see a little reminiscence of the what am I trying to say? The Luger. The fixed barrel that sticks out and protrudes from the front, but now we have an actual slide on it that, again, is kind of doing a similar thing to like what the Beretta M9 does, where you have the slide that moves back and forth, but it still exposes the barrel underneath it.
Mm-hmm. Top eject.
Is it a top? Oh, yeah.
Yep, straight up the top.
Sure enough. And then it has a slide. Actually, shoot. It reminds me a lot of the Beretta M9.
Yeah,
it has a slide safety.
Mm-hmm. And it's also, if you're familiar with the Beretta, it decocks.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Just exactly like a Beretta would.
Yeah. Huh.
Whoa.
So this is the World War II main service pistol of the Germans.
P38 Walther, and then it's got the heel mag like the early Berettas as well did.
Yep.
So it's. What's your date? I can't remember what yours is dated.
Mine is dated January of 45, late December, early January of 44, 45.
Okay.
I think mine's in February of 43, I believe, is what this one was.
And
this one has got. This is kind of odd because this was made in spree work, and it's a CVQ as opposed to a CYQ. CYQ was spree work, their designation, but some poor
shop hand
slave labor took and knocked the tail off of the die of the Y in protest. But it wasn't enough to stop production of the guns, so he probably didn't die because of that. But that was just in defiance. My grandpa has a Walther PPK that actually says Nalther because someone did the same thing to the W on the die. It wasn't enough to stop production.
Right.
And so
they just do stuff just to kind of screw with them.
Right, because in definance of having to be there.
Wow.
And and from all
and
of
these
the
are probably not German people, right?
They were incarcerated people.
Right.
They
from Germany.
Jews, gypsies, Poles, whoever was slave labor, whatever, and enemies of the state. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And from what I've found in all my research with my serial number, it's the earliest one that I found that's got the CVQ, because the earlier ones have the CY.
Yeah.
And this is the first one. I'm not saying this is the first one, because I'm sure it's not.
Right.
But because there's thousands of them made. But I can't find one that's got a serial number that's newer than mine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is really cool. There's so many of those little things. Like, I always think of World War II as one of the, so many unfortunate things happened in World War II, of course, so it sounds so weird to say one of the coolest times in history, because for many people, it I'm sure wasn't. But also just so many fascinating things happened during that time. And you look at little things like that people would do in defiance, but it wouldn't stop things. And then, lo and behold, here we are in 2019 discussing the fact that, some guy knocked this thing off the die, and now I have this pistol that it's just that weird little part of history that's
just
super
those
cool
nuances.
that firearm holds with it. And
like I never before this conversation. Now, granted, I don't commonly like research this topic, right?
Yeah,
that's not. You guys are just a wealth of knowledge, and it's all fascinating. But I never would in a million years would have guessed, like, in an act of defiance, somebody, changes a letter on the die.
And when I think about it too, I'm trying to rack my brain right now and think to myself of things that would have been saved from a war like that. World War I, World War II, even some of the wars prior to that. Things that would have been saved. You look at, some people are still driving around little old Jeeps, that maybe were salvaged from that time period, but a lot of them are just kind of remaking, the Willys Jeeps that were then commercially produced after the war, or they're just remaking their own modern variants. And you look at, it's not like a whole lot of medical equipment gets saved. Some of it does, but it's not like, like uniforms get saved, but that's kind of a hard thing, to always save after a really long period of time. What I'm getting at is I feel like guns, the actual firearms used, are something that is saved maybe more often than about anything else from a war.
Well, part of that is the material they're made of.
Yeah,
it's
right.
a lot easier to keep the iron items, the swords, the guns, medieval armor, I suppose. Then for his 1911.
Like, this is actually, I didn't bring this up. This is a 44 dated 1911 holster, original. And
right.
You can see the age.
And
same thing with these. These are all.
That's seen better days.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
But it's the material. It's only going to last so long. And even the M1 carbine leather gripped bayonets. The leather deteriorates.
Right.
You got this great pristine knife with a crappy handle because it's the material they're made of.
Yep.
And depending on which theater of operation it was in, it could have been crappy by 1950.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
I do just think it's so cool though how, if somebody were to ask me point blank, and of course maybe it's just the type of person I am too, and if you ask somebody else, I don't know, but to think of World War II artifacts that I could still go out and get, or that I would think of when I thought of like really unique stories in history of those time periods, and a lot of it boils down to the firearms.
Uniforms are also becoming, you can get those still very quality shape. Like I picked up.
They do stay pretty well?
Yeah. Depending on when it was made and where they went, like early uniforms, early World War II, depending on the condition of where they were kept, sometimes they'll stiffen up. Like, especially when they were to go, like, for instance, D-Day, when they were invading Germany. They impregnated all those uniforms with a special chemical, prevent gas, when they thought, okay, Hitler was hurt by gas, and when he was in World War I, he's going to do the same thing. If we try to invade France or wherever, he's going to gas the U.S. Army.
Okay.
So all the uniforms were impregnated with a special chemical. And if you see those nowadays, they're basically stiff as rock. A lot of them are.
Okay.
Huh.
Like I was at somebody's house a couple years ago, just looking through some stuff, trying to maybe buy some stuff, and she had 3 or 4 uniforms that were her relatives, and they were just stiff because they impregnated them with all these chemicals. It just shrivels them up.
Wow.
And I'd be curious to know what those chemicals are.
And it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Same way you also look at photos from D-Day. A lot of the airborne guys are wearing this armband. And basically it's a special armband treated with this chemical. If there's any moisture of gas or anything, it's going to turn a bright, bright yellow. And that's how they know there was gas around.
So that was their canary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yellow canary.
Wow. Coors Light thought they were really something when their cans turned blue and they got cold, but little do they know people were doing that stuff.
Well, it's also probably, I think the message that you're getting is quite different.
Quite different, I get it, yeah. But
you're ready for the can to get blue.
Yeah.
You're not ready for your armband to turn yellow.
Yeah, that's right. But it is crazy to hear that they had something like that back in that time. Yeah.
Same thing, gas masks are getting hard to find because all it is it's a cloth material with plastic parts, and it's just, they crumble apart because they're also treated with this chemical to prevent gas from seeping through, and when you find those in good quality shape, you're going to spend a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Well, I can speak from personal experience on uniforms.
Oh yeah, you were Navy.
Because I have my uniforms from when I was in the 80s, and they're in a cardboard box in the attic.
Right.
Not the, I tried to get rid of them once. My mom wouldn't let me. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, totally unrelated. Right before I got out, I was the driver for the captain on the boat. I was a boat driver.
Oh, okay.
And he had to go somewhere, and it was absolutely pouring down rain. So I got soaked, and of course the seas were rough, and I got soaked in my dress blues, which are wool.
Okay, sure.
And this was right before I got out, and so anyway, they shrank. They come to about here on me, and so yeah, I mean they were it was so they're of absolutely no value to anyone because it looks like some little kid would have worn these things because they just shrank up, and it's just the craziest thing. But I still got them, but they're not being treated like that. My dress whites are up there in this box, and is the box completely closed? No. From 1945 when people came home until 75, they didn't care what was going on with those things. They didn't want to see them.
Right. Whereas the things like the guns, well they're probably then taking them hunting or using them or displaying them or storing them, and
yeah. Well, they had their hunting guns anyway. So they took care of their hunting guns, and that twice a year when they got them out and cleaned them and oiled them and everything and put them back, they did it to all the guns, not just the two that they were using for, bird hunting and deer hunting.
Right.
Squirrel hunting or whatever. They took care of all of their guns. So it was different. And especially if they reminisced whenever they, took this off of some guy.
Oh, totally.
They took care of that because that meant something to them.
Mm-hmm.
And by the same token, the kids were, in the 60s were out playing with their grandpa's steel pot and bayonets, digging in the yard or whatever, because, it was just grandpa's stuff he didn't need anymore. And they're playing Army.
Well,
but the guns the kids weren't playing with.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of cool stuff here, guys.
Amazing.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you guys joining us for this one. Yeah. For those who have gotten the treat of watching on YouTube, you've seen a lot of these in person now. MC Ryan here is going to try and get some photos for those who have just been listening along. We'll post them up on Instagram and whatnot so you can see those too. But yeah, Greg and Nick, awesome having you guys up. Thank you again for making the journey and for being awesome gun collectors.
Yep.
Because I know that my wife would not let me get away with these collections, so I get to live vicariously through you. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
No, thanks for coming, guys. Fascinating.
Awesome. Everybody, thanks for listening as usual. Hit us up too if you have any questions about these, and we can hit these guys up and answer them for you. And yeah, or I think Nick, you're on Instagram and stuff too, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. I've had a couple follow-up questions. If they have any questions, send me a message. I should be able to answer them. If I can't answer them, I know people that can.
Sweet. Alrighty. Well, we'll catch all you guys next time. Thanks again for listening. Happy hunting and shooting out there. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. Again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.